Hello, my name is Bruce Bolger, and I'm founder of the Enterprise Engagement Alliance and its Brand Media Coalition outreach program. And we're here today, a very interesting program, Women CEOs, advice to our younger selves and to the men and women with whom they work. And we're very lucky to have three women CEOs here from the incentive business to share their perspectives, their tips, their advice, what to avoid, good ideas to succeed as a woman in business. Starting on the upper left-hand side of my screen is Barb Hendrickson, known to many in the U.S. industry because she was an owner and founder of a major fulfillment company and rep company in the Midwest. Barb, thank you very much. And Barb, by the way, is also owner of Visible Communication, and she's their chief content creator. We have also Julie Leblan. She is a founder in Dubai of Merit Incentives, originally from France, and went to Dubai to launch a business. That's a whole nother story. Julie, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And then we have Ann Jetter. Ann Jetter is known again to many people in the incentive industry, and she is founder of AMJ Business Solutions, which is an advisory firm for both gift card suppliers and users. Thanks, Ann.
Happy to be here.
Finally, many in the UK market know Wendy Carter very well. She's CEO of Collection Pot, which is a collective gift-giving process for employees, a really neat idea. Wendy, thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting me.
And all of them are members and in some cases co-founders, as you'll hear, of WiiN. That's Women in Incentives Network, which is a group of women that help other women advance their careers in the incentive business. So again, thanks for tuning in. So I'd like to start with you, Lee. Again, getting right to the point. What can managers, leaders, male or female, do better when it comes to managing female employees?
The question is for me, right?
Yes, it is, Julie.
Sorry, it was cut just at the moment. I apologize for that. Listen, I think one of the things is to, of course, men and women are equal, but you have certain differences in the work environment or in the life in general that needs to be taken into account. As a manager myself, I noticed that education and culture and so on really impact how men and women react in the work environment. And I think it's great for managers to take that into account and help their employees, empower them and grow their career in a different manner. So it can start by, for women employee to make them more visible in the organization, to allow them to speak first during meetings, or to be able as well to envision their career while they may be shy sometimes to grow the ladder in an organization. I think a role of a manager to show them what's next and what's available for them at the right time.
Very good insight. Thank you. Barb, your view on this.
I agree with Julie. I'm actually very encouraged. I'm a baby boomer, so most of my bosses, most of my clients in the beginning were men. They had wives who worked in the home that took care of everything. The phrase work-life balance had not yet been uttered. I have two millennial sons who have professional women partners. They don't see gender, they don't see color, they don't see sexual preference. They both worked with and for women. And they want work-life balance too. I mean, they help, they are equal parents, they're equal doing the chores around the house. So, I mean, they want some free time too. So I'm very encouraged that as millennials and younger move into management, that they will be very sensitive to, you know, people having a life outside of work and all that entails. So the more flexibility they can offer, I think the happier and more productive those employees are going to be.
And something noteworthy you say, being gender blind, color blind, in other words, just you're a person, and your views, having been both, now you run a company and you've been an employee. What's your advice to managers?
Well, I definitely agree with both Julie and Barb's remarks as well. But I think one thing that's very helpful is for a manager to get to know their team and for the team to get to know one another and know where everyone comes from. You don't know what Julie's encountered today or what Barb's encountering at home, and back to the work-life balance. I think it's very important to know that whether they're dealing with a family illness or other outside stresses, that it just kind of brings it back to how their work is being performed. And if there are other distractions and things like that, it's a lot to juggle. So I think just kind of getting to know everyone's strengths and where everyone's coming from, it kind of sets the stage for expectations and how you can help and how you can work together better.
And just so you know, I'm not looking at my phone, I'm taking notes because you're making some great points. Thank you. Wendy, your point of view. And I love this international point of view because we have two people from the US, we have the UK, and we have Dubai, and a little bit of La France in this. Yes. So that's terrific. Wendy.
I mirror comments that Barb's made. Actually, I came from, prior to being in the incentive space, I was in the publishing and newspaper industry in the UK for many years, which was very male, dominated. And I had to fight my corner for just about everything I wanted to do. When I think now to the people that I work with or people that we employ, it's a completely different approach. It just couldn't be any far more removed. And I think that conversations, and Anne's mentioned, career conversations are so important. And if you like, off the record conversations are important, just understanding what your employees want, what drives them, what fits with their home life, regardless of gender. It's actually every element of that conversation is really important. So I think we've made great strides. I think the modern workplace is just significantly better. But there's still a lot to do. There's a lot more work to do.
And to that point, Julie, a big question that people might have is, does adhering to traditional signs of respect to women, such as opening a door, or any, I think, frankly, a gesture that I open doors for men too, personally. But do these types of gestures, are they demeaning to women? Does that convey male superiority? Where does social norms, and I know in different countries it might be different, but where do social and business norms meet or separate?
No, I think I don't think women feel threatened by the fact that you keep a minimum of social rules and things that are happening in the daily life. What may be, offending can be looking at a woman when someone is asking for coffee, or this kind of implied gender biased look, or questions that may be complicated. I think it's more, one of the things I think managers need to think about, it's more than just a gesture, it's also about the unsaid part of what's going on. I'll give you an example, coming back to what we were saying about millennials, or Gen X, they don't look at gender and they are very, very equal and so on. I manage a company where we have 60 employees, 19 nationalities, and a lot from emerging countries. When lockdown happened during COVID, actually the issue is women were much more impacted in terms of work. Why? Because they live with their family and they are constrained much more to the chores, especially in emerging countries. So the unsaid for us was they won't come to us and say something because it's normal for them. Like they do the cooking, they take care of the younger siblings. A lot of people live in the same place. So we had to ask our employees to come back to work earlier to be able for them to focus, because not because we didn't want to be hybrid and working from home and so on, but because we knew that women were much more impacted and their performance were decreasing. And not because they didn't want to perform, it was double work on a daily basis and a lot of stress for them. So I think men should more look at, okay, understand the unsaid, have a look at emotional intelligence, because a woman will not always complain about things, and just be careful about what's happening in the environment. But I think it's nice if someone opened the door for us. I don't see a point. I'm French, so I think it's great, but.
So Barb, this is an interesting issue though, because, where does social and business, they sometimes get a little crazy, right? Because you can know somebody quite well and then walk into a meeting and you might be tempted, oh, I've known you quite well, and do, well, in French, they se faire la bise, or, get a quick kiss or a hug or whatever in a very friendly way. But can that be an issue? Where do we draw the line on our social relationships and the social norms relating to expressing joy of seeing an old colleague and professionalism? What's your view on that?
Hey, you're remembering my story, I see. First, I'll go back to your original question about the opening doors. I've never been offended by a courtesy. So that is not an issue for me personally. I tend to approach it from, I don't know if status is the right word. I would always open the door or get a coffee for a client, for a boss, something like that. So it doesn't have anything to do with gender. For me, it has to do with respect for their position. And yes, I did have a situation where I worked with a male colleague for a customer for a long time. He went to a new company. He called me in to work on a project, and there was a conference room full of people. I shook hands with everyone else, but I did give him a hug. And I regret that because I think he was horrified, first off. And I think that I did not realize what message that might send. So now there's a room full of people going, well, what was that relationship? And how well did he know her? And what was, so ever since then, I err on the side of discretion, like everybody gets either a handshake. We might be done with handshakes now since the pandemic. We might just be waving in the room, but that.
Oh, we lost you. I hope we've got everybody else. Anne, you're there?
Yeah.
Okay, well, Barb, we lost that last point, but you were making the point that
I said that's a mistake I won't repeat.
And your perspective on being treated politely versus a male superiority, and also any other advice along with Barb's with how to mix social norms with business norms. And that's going to be coming to you too, Wendy, from a British perspective.
Well, I tend to agree definitely with Barb. I think women are, generally right now, being kind. There is no gender bias. There isn't anything wrong with offering someone a glass of water or opening the door for somebody. I think it's just a human kindness act. I also, I saw a post yesterday that said, are you old school? It said, be kind to your elder, or respect your elders, be kind to others. Are you old school? And there were a lot of likes on that it was just a general thing that we're old school, but there's nothing to do with gender in that. I think by nature, women are very nurturing. And I think that it becomes second nature for us to offer to do something for someone as a mom or a parent, or offer to take care of somebody and, offer them a drink, just do a nice random act of kindness. Those are very well respected, I think, and very welcomed, because it's often just a personal thing. It has nothing to do with work. It's just a relationship thing.
But I think what I'm hearing here is it really is beneficial to just keep social, nothing wrong with being polite to one another. That's just absolutely normal. But good casual thing, keep social relationships separate from business relationships, stay within business norms, generally speaking. But Wendy, what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, I think COVID is in some ways has made some acts of kindness, if you like, more complicated in some respects. But I think that we work in an industry where, a lot of people know each other, and you want to go up and say hello and give them a hug, particularly if you haven't seen them for a long time. And I think that people aren't offended by that. I think people are happy to see each other. But there is a line, and it's a really difficult one to read, and we've all got it wrong. I've done it when I think back and think, actually no, that was inappropriate, or you should have just shook hands. They didn't want a big hug, all that sort of stuff. But I think it's sometimes it's difficult to read, particularly if you don't know the people very well. But I think it is also then the very small gestures that make a big difference. It is making a cup of coffee or offering to make a cup of coffee. It is just saying thank you, or just acknowledgement of something that's been said or done. And the door thing is, it is quite a British thing in many respects, I suppose, but actually it doesn't matter if it's, the gender of the person that's in front of you or behind you. If they've dropped the door, it's just damn rude. There is no, there's no excuse for it whatsoever. And I think that I was speaking to a group of, it was friends of friends, sort of daughters who were sort of early 20s, and they're quite angry with the world. I think COVID in some respects has made them quite angry, and so therefore their view is, they're quite determined and in some respects quite aggressive to get into the workplace. And it'd be interesting to see what happens, sort of 5-10 years down the line with that, that generation coming through into work.
Thank you. So another interesting issue is dress. Julie, you come from France, which is a country, of course, noteworthy. Of course, so is Britain and our country as well for fashion. And of course, every woman or man who likes fashion has a right to dress following fashion, one would say. But is there a line that, again, we're giving advice here to our younger selves and to our colleagues? Where do you think a professional woman should draw the line? And that would perhaps apply to men too, because they're really is it always appropriate for a man to show up in a super high fashion situation? But your view from a female perspective.
I think the thing is, I started my career as a solicitor and barrister. So we have standards anyway in the industry to dress all the same, and we look like little soldiers, and we have actually to go to court robe, so it's covering our outfits. So I'm in favor of dressing as you want, as long as you feel comfortable. I always find that dressing in a business way, it's easier for me. It's not about others, it's for me, I feel more comfortable and I feel more equal to be able to negotiate, to be able to stand out in a meeting, and not, okay, my skirt is too short, or you can see, I don't know, my cleavage or whatever. It would feel very uncomfortable. And then I moved to the Middle East. So in the Middle East, it's even another level. I need to think about other people's religion, other people's beliefs. I need to make sure I don't make my clients or my business partner or my employees uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And not only because I'm a woman, but because we live with many different communities together. So it's implied, I think everyone can dress as they want. I think it just needs to be respectful for others. Like I wouldn't accept, for example, political sign on a t-shirt from an employee. I think it's inappropriate in a work environment. I think for other things like crop top, I'm in favor for high school, by the way. I was in favor of the crop top trend because I think it's the age and it's totally fine.
Hold on,
It
but
may
we have to
be-
define this for people that don't know what that is. What is a crop top? Sorry.
So it's it's a short t-shirt, and it does make a big fuss in Europe. I think Wendy can say you had the same thing, right, in the UK.
Yeah,
And,
we did.
Yeah, in France, actually, they tried to ban crop top from high school, and all the girls came the day after with the crop tops in class. So, but literally everyone. So it might be complicated for us in the incentive industry. We work with so many different people. We work with governmental entity. We work with banks and so on. So you have a dress code. We need to adapt depending on the client. But I don't think it's an excuse for men to make a comment or to allow promiscuity or to do jokes. So I don't think it's appropriate. I think everyone should keep their comments.
Well, that's a very interesting, and we're going to be very careful on that debate discussion, because Barb, getting to your point, I think I know you well enough to know that you like fashion. You know, you don't come show up at an event wearing jeans and a t-shirt with a political statement on it. What is your view of kind of protecting your identity, being yourself, dressing the way you'd like, but not wanting to create unnecessary disturbance with male vibes or whatever?
Well, I think, I mean, in another way, Julie said, you know, you need to read the room. You know, I think, I don't know that younger people feel this same way, but I would always choose to dress appropriate to the company, my company culture or my customers' culture. So, okay, if you step outside of that, I feel like you're creating an unnecessary obstacle that you now need to overcome. So if you work on Wall Street and you see how everyone dresses on Wall Street and you show up in full goth, I mean, you could be the best money manager ever, but you are going to have to overcome that perception before anybody listens to your message. So I feel like if you're reading the room and you're dressing appropriate for your audience, and I'm not talking about, you know, a big necklace or a scarf or, you know, I mean, there's plenty of room for individuality within the company's standards.
And your point of view?
I would have to agree 100% with both Julie and Barb. I also come from more of a corporate background, and we definitely had a dress code. I mean, at one time, women weren't even allowed to wear pants. You know, you must wear nylons and you had to wear a jacket. And, you know, back at First Data, back in the day, that's how things were run. But I do agree that you do need to know your audience. And I think you need to be your best self. I think if you feel appropriate walking out the door or getting on your Zoom call, I think it just helps the whole situation. You know, if you're dressing for success for yourself, for your day, for your meetings, for your clients, I mean, that's what you're showing up for, and to be your best self. I've always been in retail my whole life. I'm back in it again, and working with Cabby and clothing line. And I think that there's all different levels of putting on something casual, but it just makes you feel great, just one step above. Or if you need to put a suit on, you know, there's still those events that are still in meetings that people are still meeting in person. And, you know, like Julie said, if you're in the banking industry or Barb in Wall Street, those are very valid points.
So Wendy, I know a very successful woman in the human capital space, had top HR jobs. She's now also a professor, one of the most impressive people I've known in business. But she told me something very interesting. She's very fashionable. She likes to dress fashionably. And when mini skirts were in, she wore them. And she would get comments sometimes from men, and she would just stare them down. She would just, no, I'm wearing a mini skirt because that's fashion. That's the way I want to dress. And she's, as you can imagine, a strong individual.
Yeah.
What's your view on making a fashion statement in work, and that balancing of the right to be you, the the right to be you, the right to not get comments or distractions from idiotic people, but also balancing professionalism?
Yeah, I spent the 90s probably, in power suits because I worked in an office and it was the big shoulder pad era and all of that. And I did it because everybody else did it. You sort of became like Julie said, little sort of mini me's, and we all look the same. When I look back on that now, I sort of just think actually, it was of its time, and I wouldn't dream of dressing like that now. But there is an element of people that, they do judge a book by the cover. They just do. They see what they want to see. And I think the example of your friend, I think power to her that that's how she wants to dress. That's her style. And I think there is a mindset, if I know I'm going to go and be on a stage and speak or, present an event or something, then I will really make in my head think, right, okay, what do I want to wear? What's going to make me feel good? What's going to give me the confidence to deliver the message I want to deliver? It's not actually then thinking, will I get comments or what will other people be thinking? It's actually, there's a balance. And I think as you sort of get, I guess, a little bit older, you sort of feel more comfortable in yourself. And therefore, you wear things that make you feel comfortable as well. So I think a lot of it is the mindset. I do think it's quite challenging in the workplace now, because workplaces where, certainly in the UK, where you would normally, for the guys, would wear a suit and a tie, that the ties have been relaxed now. The jackets have been relaxed, for the ladies, again, the workplace sort of uniform, if you like, has changed quite a lot. And I think some people use that to hide behind a little bit. It gives them that little bit of confidence, that they want to fit in. They don't want to be the one person wearing the different pair of shoes or not got the right handbag or trainers or whatever. So I think as you get more confident in yourself, you wear what makes you feel good. And I think that's each to their own, really.
So this gets to the subject of what happens when something uncomfortable happens. I'm sure in each of your careers, there have been moments when it got a little creepy in some way, shape, or form, or maybe it was just as innocent with somebody asking you to get the coffee, like, why me? So what advice, Julie, and you don't have to share any war stories here, but you can keep in the back of the mind, whatever you want to share. What advice do you give to women who end up in an uncomfortable situation?
I think the first thing is they shouldn't think it's coming from them. That's the first thing, because if someone is making you uncomfortable, it's coming from the other person. And it's very difficult when you start your career, because you don't always have the codes. You don't know what is allowed, not allowed, what is normal. And someone with above you in the hierarchy you can be like a bit shy or scared to say something. So first of all, I would say always reply and acknowledge, eventually make a joke about it loudly, because then it attracts more people to hear about what's going on. Without being rude, of course. No one asks you to send your manager to hell. And if it's a one time, I think you can maybe have a discussion with the person afterwards, saying, listen, it hurts. Not it hurts my feeling, because you can be perceived as emotional, but I would say it bothers me. Can we have a discussion about it? And if it's becoming repetitive, then definitely to reach out to someone else, a third party, to be able to help and mediate, because you can't work on a daily basis. You spend most of your time at work. You can't work with someone that bothers you like this.
Well, you tell a story one time, Julie, of standing in line someplace, I'm not going to say where, and feeling that people were making inappropriate comments. In a situation like that, is it just best to shut up and grin and bear it and move on? Or is it ever appropriate to turn to the person and say, what are you doing? Who do you think you are? Does it ever make sense to call somebody out on it, even if it's one-on-one?
I think when you're a bit younger as well, I don't say it doesn't happen to me anymore, but it happened more often when I was younger. I just find that it always caught me by surprise. You never expect, you know, when it's going to happen. So sometimes you have something to say and it will come quick, and you will have the right answer at the right moment. But you know what? Most of the time, what happens is you do the story in your head after. Oh, personally, this is what happened to me. And 10 times you answer the same person and find the right thing you wanted to say at this moment. But I think, you know, you're never prepared for it. I think it's also an education on men there is a fine line between being funny and being annoying. And it can be,
Barb.
you know, like, or not only funny, like complimenting, for example, a woman for 5 minutes about her hair, her look when you meet her. One nice comment about, oh, you have a nice dress, that's nice. But every time you see, oh, you changed something in your hair, or I don't know, but too much is also something that can be, I wouldn't go to a man and say, oh my gosh, I love your suit. And what did you do to your hair? Like this gray highlight is amazing. So yeah, I think it's just a fine line. I think men needs to think about it a bit more. And it's the same for us, women manager or women CEO. I'm careful about what I'm saying to younger men. I don't want to be perceived as being annoying or making an inappropriate comment, because maybe they perceive the hierarchy as something that could be, you know, they would have difficulty to reply to me.
So Barb, today in the news, thank you. Chris Cuomo, who for those of you overseas would know him, is a CNN announcer, and he's the brother of the governor of New York, who just had to leave because of his inappropriate behavior with women. Well, Chris today, it turns out, and Barb, this is a great example, got some heat. There's an editorial in the New York Times that I think is going to appear in print tomorrow, where a former boss of his, writes that he showed up at an event. He didn't work for her anymore. He had been moved and he no longer worked for her. He was very happy to see her, and he hugged her and grabbed her behind. And her husband happened to be right there and saw it. Okay. So, and he's now, you know, taking heat for that, blah, blah, blah. He sent an email apologizing for it. But Barb, those things happen. What do you think is the appropriate thing to do? I mean, shouldn't a woman say to the guy, if you think that is in any way an attractive come on, you've got to be out of your mind. What does a woman say to a guy who does something like that?
First, I want to go on the record as saying, when I hugged that guy, I did not grab his butt, okay? I mean, rarely, I don't think these things are intended as a joke. I think they're intended to catch us off guard, as Julie said.
It's a control thing.
Yes. I had a first meeting with a client. We had just been awarded a program. This is years ago in the 90s. We had just been awarded a program, but we were meeting the guy for the first time. This was an automotive executive. I'm in the meeting with my business partner, who was a female. And we're talking about the project. In the middle of the project, he leans forward and he says, "You have the greenest eyes that I have ever seen." And I thought, what the hell is wrong with you? You know, but of course, it's a new client. You don't say that. You know, I joked. I said something like, I don't even have my colored contacts in today, you know, and we moved on. I mean, my choice is always to diffuse it with humor so that you can act like it was probably a joke, although you know it definitely was not a joke. It was either meant to demean you, to throw you off your guard, to do something like that. And I mean, there was no Me Too movement back then. There was nothing like that. There was no mechanism like there is today. If you don't take it as a joke, you're a humorless bitch, you know, so that's no good. So, I mean, there are options today for younger women, or for all women. And I think my choice would always be to diffuse it, to answer, like Julie said, maybe talk to them offline and say, listen, I didn't appreciate that. Let's not go there again. If it's a colleague or something like that. But there's a fine line between being asked to get coffee and real sexual harassment. So I'm happy that there are mechanisms to report that today. But I think women are very, very conscious that there are consequences for those who report it. So it's a really tough position to be in.
So Anne, are you really in the business of picking your battles when dealing with this type of thing? Again, what your advice to women who get weird innuendos and treatment in business?
Well, coming from back the corporate world and managing trade shows and being around sales guys all the time, I think, like we've all said, I think it's kind of okay to laugh it off at the beginning, but then address it, because you have to establish limits for your credibility, for success in working together. You have to work with these people tomorrow or see them later today, and you don't want to come off as difficult to work with. But you do just have to establish your territory and kind of say that was a little too much, and let's just keep moving forward. And we're on the same team. And I think you're right. The HR world is a whole nother world from what we were used to before. And these things will be addressed, where before they were just kind of a nod and okay, it wasn't addressed like it is today. And I think just, identifying that everybody's on an equal playing field, I think just calling them out right away is the best way to address it, because you do have to work with them in the future.
So Anne, so Wendy, so the advice here seems to be that if you're in a public situation, it doesn't help to humiliate the guy in most cases, unless he really goes over the line, right? That's something else. But assuming it's a subtle innuendo, your advice to your younger self is kind of humor your way through it, and then afterwards call the person aside. What's your concluding thought on that?
I think there isn't one answer, I think, actually, because it depends on the situation. As Julie said, this sometimes comes from the person you least expect it at the most, and time when you least expect it. So I think that we're all, we're strong women, and we are, able to, as Anne said, you go back on the comment. It doesn't make it right, but it's the way that we are comfortable dealing with it. I think if you're not so confident, it is a form of, in the workplace, it can become a form of bullying and control. And that's a really, really difficult thing. It's a very difficult thing for the individual to speak out. Who do they speak to? What are the consequences? Who do they go to? It's hard. It's a really, really difficult thing. And again, to the point of what somebody finds offensive, somebody else laughs off. There's no top 10, the worst things you can say, because everybody would avoid them. Some sensitivities are very different to each individual. But I think one thing that has changed and helps is in the workplace, where my advice actually would be, find somebody that you can talk to, whether it's, a peer-to-peer, whether it's just somebody you can offload a little bit, and just say, if nothing else, a reassurance, this isn't me, I didn't invite this comment or this action, this isn't me. But then if there is a more formal process in your business or your company, then you take that route. But I think the second point is that, the feedbacks and the 360 feedbacks that a lot of companies are doing now, they are anonymous. And the chances are, in my sort of experience in terms of managing people and seeing this happen in the workplace, if this person is doing it to one person, they're doing it to others. And so the pattern starts to form. And the only way that can get uncovered is actually by, speaking to somebody, or, reporting or mentioning it in your 360 or your review with your line manager. And then hopefully it spreads the conversations so that you don't feel you're the lone voice in trying to deal with this.
So moving on to we're getting on toward the end. So we have two important questions, and I'm going to ask you guys to try to get them pretty quickly because they're kind of similar. But I think what I'm taking back, that what you folks haven't said, that the advice to a man is, if you have any kind of comment that you have any doubt about making, don't make it. If you have any kind of moment that you want to say something in business, I'm not talking about personal, you can do whatever the heck you want, but in business, it seems that your advice would be to men, when in doubt, don't say it. Is that kind of fair advice?
But I think as well, communicate a lot and listen to women around you in the work environment, because as we said, the generation has changed. One thing I noticed as well, to me, manager or leaders should, CEO should lead by example. So if you set the tone as a CEO, when you make a weird joke all the time, or you don't consider women when they speak, or you don't give the same treatment to everyone because you feel more comfortable. And starting by me, when I started to be a founder and CEO, making sure that the manager under me are respectful. I caught some of them making weird comments, and I had to have a separate conversation with them saying, this is not acceptable. You can't speak about women like that or make this kind of jokes. This is not appropriate at all. And then they started to think more. I think we have a responsibility, not as women manager only, but as managers, to set the tone in a work environment.
Well, thank you for actually anticipating the question to you, which was, is there anything else that men can do to be sensitive with women who report to them, who are on their equal level, or to whom they report to? So anything else you'd like to add to what you just said to answer that question related to, again, what should men be sensitive to, whether they work for them, work with them, or report to them?
Yeah, listen, open door policy, allow feedback, even feedback you don't want to hear sometimes. I think it's the best way to address this kind of question. And like Wendy said, every situation is different. So it's not because you think you do the right thing or you employ X% of women in your company that you have tick the box and that's okay. No, it's a continuous improvement and you need to think about it carefully.
Great. So Barbara, your advice to men, either who work for a woman, are colleagues, any other, or who report to a woman, any other things that they should be perhaps sensitive to?
No, I think Julie said it very well. I'd like to go back to the advice to my younger self or to women that are coming up. I think it's most important to not waste 1 minute being intimidated by the situation or by others. That anything you can do, study body language, research regular language, the words that convey weakness versus words that convey strength. Anything you can do to project confidence is going to help. Men are very much better at faking it till they make it than women are. And I think that's something that we should aspire to. And I think Julie answered your question very well.
And your advice to men who work with women in any capacity beyond what we've already talked about.
Well, I would also agree. Barb made fabulous comments. I would echo a lot of what Barb just said. I think it's all about, being your best self, bringing your best self to the environment every day, and be prepared. And, don't let yourself be at a disadvantage. Prepare for your meeting, be ready for it. You're working with a team, and you need to work with each other on high days and low days. And in fact, I just read a comment someone had on LinkedIn that they do a 2-word check-in with their team every day. Just, to ask Barb, how's your day today? And 2 words, how are you doing today? So I know where Barb's head is today. She might be off, she might be on a high note, just based on what self is she bringing to the office every day. And I think that speaks to, we're all on an equal playing field, and we just have to look out for each other and support each other.
Wendy, your points on that?
Yeah, I think I also like to add to that. It's a mutual respect. Whoever you're working with, you have a respectful relationship. You spend a lot of time working in with these people in your office or, Zoom calls or whatever it is. It's just a mutual respect. It's professional respect. And one thing I would like to add is that I think that there's nothing wrong with showing some vulnerability, an emotion sometimes. Not every day is a happy day. Not every day is, a brilliant day. And I think sometimes, I don't know if this is more for women than men, but, sometimes it's okay to, have a little sweary fit or, admit that you might have a couple of glasses of wine at the end of the day occasionally because it's been a tough one. We're not machines, and that's male and female. And so I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think sometimes we're a little bit honed and driven, to the point of exhaustion almost, really, and I think there was an article I was reading a couple of weeks ago about Fortunes magazine, and most admired companies, I'm just reading, apologies, have twice as many women in senior roles, and that's because they just, when you read about them, they show their vulnerabilities. And they show what they've learned and how they've got there. And I think sometimes if you asked a man that question, they wouldn't be prepared to show that. They wouldn't show their vulnerability, and they wouldn't show and share sometimes how they've got there. So I think that would be my in a nutshell, is respect. It's respect of each other, and respect of the environment that you're working in.
And wrapping up, and because I do want to give each of you a chance to talk about WiiN for a minute before we wrap up, but I did want to talk also, women also have to work for women, work with women, and et cetera, et cetera. Julie, all of you are executives, right? And so what advice do you have for women who have women employees? Are there things that women sometimes do to other women in business that are offensive, and that hurt, like men do to women? Any other thing, just keeping this equal here, wrapping up, what women can do, what women should be aware of? Julie.
I think, funny enough, so I started my career in a male environment. I was always the only woman most of the time, or like we were very few. And when I had my own company and I started my own company, I hired women only first, which was a mistake, because having only women in an organization is not good as well. It's not balanced. So as you said, Wendy, to me, balance, equality, the fact that you treat people the same way. You don't give an advantage specifically to women because you are a woman CEO. You understand them better, so it's easier for you to work with women, but you need also to give a chance to men as well, without diminishing them or without making them feel awkward because they are a man reporting to a woman. So I think as women managers, we just need to be careful not to reproduce the same thing we faced as women employee when we have someone from a different gender we are reporting to. We just need to be careful with that. I think it's something quite new, because not so many women before had executive position or C-level position or being entrepreneur, and we have not been trained for that, or personally I've not been trained for that. I'm learning. And it's a very interesting aspect of things to be careful both ways,
Barb,
but,
you're the one.
And one more thing, just one thing, we need to make sure as well to make the woman grow in the company, and to make sure we don't miss the opportunity to make them become a manager when it's the right time, because sometimes they don't voice, or they don't have this ambition of coming quickly from one position to another. So you need to anticipate and help them open their eyes about what's next.
You said that before, and that's really important. Thank you. Barb.
Yeah, everybody knows the concept of the Queen Bee and the Devil Wears Prada, movies and things where women hold other women down. That has never been my experience. I hope that's just an old myth now that doesn't exist anymore. My experience in working for women and with women is very supportive, very interested in I mean, my company was also primarily women. And I mean, we had male employees too, but to really understand what other women are juggling typically. And if you can provide the flexibility that they need to manage the rest of their lives, you know, they'll be super productive.
And Ann, I'm going to give you the last word on that because Wendy, I'm going to ask you about WiiN. So, Ann, we're running out of time. So, Ann, your views on advice to women in terms of being managers and with their colleagues, with other female colleagues.
Well, sure. I think overall, I think we've all come a long way in this age group, I think, from our past, our corporate backgrounds and entrepreneur backgrounds. And I think, you know, looking back on my former self, what had I done or wished I'd have known, I think I would have asked a lot more questions and been, you know, more in group environment where you're with men and women alike. I think back in our experience, you know, in our corporate days, there was a lot of differences between men and women. And I think that the younger generation now has the opportunity to work together a little bit more cohesively because they don't have the biases that we grew up with. You know,
Well,
we're all for the common good. So.
Well, that's terrific. So Wendy, I'm watching the time here. Why don't you give us kind of a quick recap? You and Julie founded WiiN, Women in Incentives Network. Ann and Barb are also very involved. Could you give us a quick overview to conclude the meeting about WiiN, why it was founded and why people should join?
Yeah, thank you. So yes, WiiN was formed 12 months ago. It's our birthday on the 7th of October. So WiiN was formed with 6 co-founders, myself and Julie included, to build a network, not-for-profit network of women around the globe that are involved in incentives and loyalty at entrepreneur level, C-suite level, and to, I guess, bring all those voices together. And to provide a platform and an opportunity for confidential conversations, if appropriate, for networking conversations, for collaboration, for learning, for education. And we have built, in 12 months, we've built an incredible network of women and, you know, many more members to come, I'm sure, over the next few years. So we have regular meetings. Clearly, they're all online at the moment. We're hoping one day that we'll all be able to get together somewhere. But one of the big initiatives that's driven the engagement with the network has been the mentorship program, which Julie's been instrumental and has set up. And it really has driven the profile of the association, along with some great keynote speakers that we've had come in. So, Julie, do you just want to update on the mentorship program? It's been your very successful baby.
Yes, thank you, Wendy. So at WiiN, we understood that women need help, support, and people to speak with along their career. So we decided to set up a mentorship program that help women with more experience to mentor younger people in the industry, so younger women in the industry. And actually the answer was amazing. For the first class, we have 16 members, I think, that came together. Barb and Anna are mentors, by the way. Thank you for that. And we have seen an amazing feedback and actual things that happen. So we had one of the team or one of the pair, the mentee, find a new job. She started to speak on Clubhouse. We have other people that make significant move in their careers, were able to speak to their manager and discuss about their plans, also to work on soft skills, to be able to understand what they can, you know, where they can get better. And we saw a passion. This is what I really, really love about this mentorship program. We saw mentors that were extremely passionate to help all this young audience. Why? Because I think when we started our career, we would have loved to have mentors as well to help us. So
Well,
we
this is
are,
a great program, and we're
Yeah.
going to, folks, we're going to tell you where to join on the YouTube channel show, and on the article, we'll tell everybody where to go and join. So listen, I want to thank you folks for this great conversation. I wish I had been in a conversation like this 25 years ago, perhaps. We heard some great insights here. So I want to thank Julie Barbier-Leblan, who is CEO, Merit of Incentives and WiiN co-founder. Wendy Carter, CEO of Collection Pod, a terrific new concept, Wendy. Congratulations. And she's also co-founder of WiiN. And Jetter, who's launched her new advisory firm for gift card companies and is off and running. Congratulations, Anne. And Barb, who continues to be an industry leader, and congratulations on your recent Karen Rank Award from the IMA, well deserved. So our programs are sponsored by terrific companies. Our founding sponsors, EGR International and Just Rewards, and many other leading providers of engagement solutions and brands in our industry. And the Enterprise Engagement Alliance is always here, 24/7, 365, all around the world, only in English, I'm afraid, to talk about all the areas of engagement, program design, news, features, and whatnot. So I really want to thank our terrific panelists, and hope to see you on another program soon.
thank you, Bruce.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
Thank you.